Hello and welcome back to Would You Rather? I'm David in Ark, and today we're going to answer some of life's most pressing questions like this one. Would you rather drink only water and alcohol for the rest of your life, or drink anything other than alcohol for the rest of your life? Well, this is actually an easy one. The short answer is I would rather drink anything other than alcohol for the rest of my life because that's kind of where I already am. The long answer. When I was in my teen years, many moons ago, when I was a teenager, I did a lot of drinking. And in fact, when I was late, well, I guess technically speaking, this would have been early college years. I lived in Colorado, and I don't know if it's still this way or not, but in those days they had stuff that was called near beer, and most beers have like 6% alcohol, and near beer had 3.2% alcohol, and the age limits were different. You could be 18 and drink near beer, and now that I'm thinking this through, I was actually a lot younger than I thought I was, which is actually kind of scary. But anyway, when I was about 17, I had to get I moved or something. I can't remember the exact circumstances, but I had to get a new driver's license anyway. And so when they read my birthday, they misread the form and they made me 2 years older than I was. So, and I guess I was 16. So maybe it was for my 16th birthday. I can't remember again. Anyway, they made me 2 years older, which made me old enough to buy beer. And so I did, a lot and often. And, really for the next several years up until, a couple of years into my college years, I drank all the time. It's one of those things where it got to be where, I had fewer days that I remembered than the days I didn't remember. I would often wake up not having a clue where things were, what happened. And as often happens with folks that have a life-changing experience related to drugs or alcohol, I had one evening where I only remember bits and pieces, and those bits and pieces I wish I could forget and know that I will never forget. And it was right after that I decided I would never touch alcohol again. And so I'm not a preachy kind of person. People are going to do what they want to do. I also believe that if you are able to control your consumption, that heck, even doctors say, a glass of wine a day is actually good for you. So, I'm not against consuming alcohol. I'm very much opposed to consuming alcohol beyond your capacity, beyond your capability to handle it. And if you are a type of person that like I was, I could not stop until I couldn't handle it. If I were able to stop, then I would have, and I probably would be drinking to this day, perfectly honest with you. But I know I cannot stop. I know I cannot handle it. And I know, you may be saying, well, yeah, but you already know what your limit is, so you know when you can stop. Except I also know that I can't. And I wouldn't. And so I guess technically I could stop, but I know that I wouldn't stop. So the long answer to I would drink anything other than alcohol for the rest of my life. And I'll be honest, I don't care which side, whether I'm more on the agree or disagree side. That has no bearing on this decision. This is from life experience, and I would rather drink anything other than alcohol the rest of my life. So as it turns out, so would the majority of folks. So I happen to personally think that's awesome. I know many other people would disagree with that, but I think that's awesome. And again, that's speaking from my own personal experiences. So moving right along, would I rather meet Chuck Norris or meet the Old Spice Man? Okay, this also is a simple no-brainer, at least for me. I would much rather meet Chuck Norris than like 99% of the other people in the world. If I would you rather meet Chuck Norris or fill in the blank? And honestly, and I'm going to say famous people, most famous people. If you get a chance to meet Chuck Norris, man, meet Chuck Norris. How could you not want to meet Chuck Norris? Now, there are lots of people that I would probably rather meet than Chuck Norris who are not necessarily famous. And that seems, I'm sure, completely backwards to a lot of folks. But I just, in terms of this, would you rather, I don't, whatever. The Old Spice Man, it's funny commercial. They have, he's got good writers. And Chuck Norris, yes, has had good writers as well for the movies and stuff he's been in. But again, it's Chuck Norris, man. Yeah, I'm going with Chuck Norris. Besides, I don't want to know what happens if you don't pick Chuck Norris, because there's a good chance Chuck Norris is going to show up and, just do some Chuck Norris on you. All right, so there you go. All right. If you were to be crippled, would you rather break an arm with a slightly painful infection or break a leg? Why does breaking an arm come with the infection? Why can't it just be break an arm? Why does there have to be an infection? Break a leg doesn't come with an infection. What is up with this? I don't like this at all. Why do I have to have the infection? And I don't know if this means, like, is this crippled for life? Is this a one-time thing? I have no idea. I can't see what's down below. So I'm just going to say that I'm going to assume this is a one-time thing. So basically, would I rather break an arm with a painful infection or break a leg, presumably without the painful infection? An arm or a leg? Which one's it going to cost me? Is it going to cost me an arm or a leg? Well, it just says an arm. So if I had to pick an arm, I would pick my left arm because I'm right-handed. So, I've actually, wow, I hadn't thought about this in a long time either. Back in my teenage years, I actually played, I used to play soccer. And so, I can't remember what the circumstance was, but for a period of time, we could not practice outside on the soccer field. We actually had to practice inside the gym. And I can't remember exactly how or why or what happened, but during practice one time, I twisted my knee in such a way that it actually shaved off a part of I don't know if it's actually a part of my kneecap or if it's some cartilage or anyway, that got in behind my kneecap, and it's still there. I haven't had an operation to have it taken out. And so while I was recovering from the initial pain from that, I had to wear a leg brace that kept my leg perfectly straight. And so I had to, have crutches. And then on the times I didn't use crutches, I just, kind of hobbled along. And in those days, indoor soccer was actually pretty big. And that may seem funny to a lot of you now. But it really was. It was a very popular sport. And, I lived in Pittsburgh, and so we would go to what was then the Civic Arena, aka the Igloo, and we would watch the Pittsburgh Spirit play soccer. And we always got the cheap nosebleed seats way up top, D24, if you're from Pittsburgh and you know what that reference is. We always hung out in D24. And I can remember I had the leg brace on, and I don't know if I was going to go to the concession stand or the game was over. Anyway, whatever it was, I was going down the steps. And when you have a leg you can't move, you use the other leg in order to help you maneuver. So because it can bend, then you can put your stiff leg out because your other leg can bend. And so, you kind of get this, where this leg can bend and this one can't. So it's one of those kinds of things. Anyway, I led with the wrong leg. And so I had my good leg down and my braced leg was actually up. And when I did, I lost my balance and I teetered like almost the whole way down the steps to where the railing was. And it was absolutely freaking frightening. I really thought I was going over. There was nothing stopping me other than there was a guy in the seats, on the aisle who was down below where I was teetering. I wasn't really tumbling at that point. I was teetering and I couldn't catch my balance. And he stood up and stopped me and helped me not fall over the edge. Would I have fallen over? I don't know. Who knows? But he stopped me, period. So that was awesome. So I'm saying all that to say, I've been in a situation where I couldn't use my leg. I would much rather not be able to use particularly my left arm, but still, yeah. All right. So most people would rather break a leg. More power to you. Not this kid. All right. Would you rather? Oh my gosh. What the heck is this? Oh, the subtitle says Miss Frizzle. The magic school bus. Would you rather get hit by a bus or watch a loved one get hit by a bus? If I had to do one of these two, I would much rather be the one to get hit by a bus. There is no way, first of all, whether I watched them get hit by a bus or not, there's no way I want a loved one to get hit by a bus, period. Let alone if I would have to watch it. I would much rather be the one who gets hit by the bus. So I'll take that. And I'm so glad to see most people would take the fall rather than watch a loved one get hit by a bus. But I have to say, there are almost 300,000 people who responded to this who would much rather watch their loved ones get hit by a bus than take the hit for themselves. I'm not so sure you understand what a loved one is. I'm thinking if you love them, you wouldn't want to watch them get hit by a bus. That's just me. I don't know. If you fall into that category, please, by all means, leave a comment down below and explain why you would want to watch a loved one get hit by a bus. I can't even wrap my brain around that. Okay. Would you rather be swept up in a hurricane or be lost in a flood? Wow. Okay. Now, I don't know if this means you die or not. Are we just talking about, that I would get lost in a flood and turn up somewhere downstream, be swept up in a hurricane and be found miles away? Or is this like you're going to die? Because I'll be honest, if the end result is I'm dead either way, I don't really care. I mean, if I'm going to be dead anyway, then what difference does it make which way you go? But if it turns out that I'm actually found alive somewhere else, I think wow, this is actually a little tougher. I'm going to say be lost in a flood. My concern about the hurricane is with the winds, how much, I mean, you would be potentially, picked up off the ground and thrown around and whipped around. Now, that's not to say that a raging flood is, a drive in the park, not by any stretch. There are lots of people who die in floods because the waters are so raging and they're churning and, stuff is running into you and you're getting churned under. And I'm not really talking myself into or out of either one of these, am I? So I'm just going to go with be lost in a flood and hope I'm discovered later. Okay, so more people would rather be swept up in a hurricane. Again, if you fall under, well, really either one of those, let me know which would you rather. Be swept up in a hurricane, lost in a flood. And I didn't say this earlier, but any of the other things, as always, feel free to leave comments about what you think, how you feel, how would you react? Which one would you rather do? Let me know down in the comment section below. And here we go. Would you rather be able to freeze time for 1 hour every 24 hours or be able to replicate one thing per day that disappears after 24 hours? We may have had this in a much earlier episode. I don't really remember. So, and I certainly don't remember what I said back then. So this may contradict what I picked earlier. Please forgive me. Time passes, and I have other thoughts going on, so you just never know. Be able to freeze time for an hour. So when you freeze time, I mean, I don't exactly understand what that would entail. I mean, so if I could freeze time, does that mean everything freezes? Does that mean everything except me freezes? Does that mean, I don't know, what, we lose that hour? I don't know how that works. I don't know what's going on there. Be able to replicate one thing a day that disappears after 24 hours. So I'm trying to think of what would I want to replicate that I could only have it for a day that would mean so much to me to have that I'd want to have it for a day. You know what I mean? I mean, what good is that to replicate one thing per day that disappears after 24 hours? I mean, I suppose, hear me out. I suppose if I were the type of person who were to want to take evil advantage of this, and evil is a strong word, I know, but excuse me. Let's say, for example, that I go to the bank and I withdraw $1,000. So now I have $1,000, and I replicate that $1,000 and I go buy something. Well, I go and buy it. I have whatever cost $1,000, but in 24 hours, that $1,000 disappears. So I essentially get it for free. I guess if you were so inclined, then you could pick that as your option. I'm not so inclined. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want to do that. And again, I just don't know. So here's a weird thought on that, though. How would that work if I replicate, just for an example, a pizza? I replicate a pizza, and we eat that pizza, but it disappears after 24 hours. Well, we ate it. So what happens? I mean, it's not really that pizza anymore. It's all the, stuff that your body has digested. So would that disappear? And then even if it did, what would that mean in terms of the nutrients your body already absorbed? What would that mean in terms of, you were hungry when you ate the pizza, but then you weren't hungry. And then 24 hours, that pizza disappeared, but you already ate it, so you weren't, I don't know. Am I overthinking this? Yes, I am. Freeze time for an hour. Again, that would depend if it's just time in general. First of all, if I could freeze time for 1 hour over 24 hours, so boom, freeze time. If everything freezes, then how do I unfreeze the time? Or is it like a set thing? Like at the 1 hour mark, everything goes back to normal. What would be the point in that? There would be no point in that. I mean, for all I know, that's exactly what already happens. How do you already know someone isn't freezing time for 1 hour every 24 hours and everything stops, and then in an hour, everything picks back up again? You would have no way to know that. You'd have no way to know that because everything stopped. If, however, they're talking about I could freeze time and everything else stops except me, I tell you what, I think that actually has much more positive potential implications than the replicate thing. Because here's my thinking. Think about that, man. If you could freeze time for an hour every 24 hours, and you were going to go, I don't know, let's just say I froze time, and in an hour I was able to, just for the sake of argument, okay, let's say I was able to, I don't know, pick up somebody's yard, or I was able to help finish a deck they were building or whatever, so that when time unfroze, that all of a sudden they'd be like, wait a minute, my deck is done. Wait a minute, this is already cleaned up, or this is done, or I don't know. That could be kind of cool. That would actually be kind of fun because you could mess with people. Like, for example, just for, again, sake of argument, I have the $1,000 I took out of the bank. I freeze time, and then I run around and I give random people $100 in their pocket. I stuff it in their pockets. Time unfreezes, and who knows how long it would be before they found the $100 that was in their pocket. They'd be like, where did I get $100? How could I have got $100? Oh, that'd be awesome. I'm going with that. I'm going with freeze time for an hour because that would be awesome. Oh, that would be cool. Most other people do too, so that's cool. All right. I don't know how many we've done. We're going to do this one here. Would you rather be Joker or be Bane? All right. So if I had to pick a particular villain to be, I would be the Joker. Absolutely. All right. No, seriously. I'd be the Joker because I'll be honest, I don't really know a lot about Bane, but the Joker's kind of a wackadoo, and if you've seen any of my very limited horror game playing, and or if you've seen any of the other videos where I talk about why I don't play horror games, I don't play horror games because most of them are simply jump scare games, and that does nothing for me. But it's the psychological thrillers that I love to play. And the Joker is such a wackadoo that I think it would be very interesting to be in that just twisted mindset. I know it's weird. And again, I don't really know much about Bane, so I kind of have to pick Joker by default. So I'd be the Joker. Look at there. And I know I said one more, but I'm doing one more because I don't want to end on that one. All right. Would you rather move away for 10 years from your family with no contact, or live with your family for an additional 20 years after you're misspelled 18? Well, considering I'm way beyond 18, let's pretend that I am not quite 18 and I'm looking forward ahead to what's going on. All right, so you would have to live with your family until you were 38 or move away for 10 years with no contact. I can't imagine having to live with my family, again, assuming we're talking about, again, I'm going on the premise that maybe I'm 17, so I'm at home living with my parents. Would I want to have to live with my parents till I was 38? Not particularly, just because. Moving away for 10 years from your family with no contact, again, I'm assuming I'm the 17-year-old, so now that's 27 when I finally am able to contact again. Now, having said all, having trying to process this, I know good and well that there are many cultures around the globe in which living with your family until you are whatever, 38, 48, whatever, is perfectly normal and is part of the culture. In fact, there are many cultures around the globe where the family actually never really moves away. Instead, you have kind of the central family house, and then as people get older and get married, they just build on to these houses. And so you have these kind of massive complexes of these almost like stacked homes where the entire family lives kind of in that stacked home. And for that culture and that way of life, it's perfectly normal. So I could see those folks clicking red and having no problem at all, going, yeah, that's what we do. Go for it. That's not how I was brought up. That's not how most folks in America operate. But I could see where that could have, potential benefits. I could see where it definitely have some issues. Moving away for 10 years. Here's the funny thing. And I'm an old man saying this, right? And I keep saying I'm an old man. I'm not all that old, right? I'm not even 50 yet. I know I look 65, but I'm not even 50. 10 years, the younger you are, I would argue, the less impact that 10 years would have on your life. If I were to move away now for 10 years with no contact, being almost 50, that would mean I was almost 60. that's a much bigger impact, at least to me. I mean, I already have, I've got, wife and family and other family members and, I've got kids. So we're talking 10 years of their lives that I would completely miss out on. Whereas when I was 17, that 10 years, yeah, some of that stuff would still be affected, but you'd come back, you'd be 27. You still have a whole life ahead of you, assuming something doesn't happen. You still have a whole life ahead of you. And in the scheme of things, that 10 years would be nothing. Think about that. You reestablish contact when you're 27, and then fast forward, you're now almost 50. Looking back, that 10 years, you would have made that up many times over just because of how long it had been since that 10 years. So I think I would go with move away for 10 years with no contact rather than having to live with the family until I was 38. And almost sort of similar logic, at least in my head. If you were with the family until you were 38, yes, you'd be with your family, but I don't know what that entails missing out on because you are with them, right? So I have no idea. This doesn't even, this doesn't get into what happens with marriage and kids and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go with, again, assuming we're the 17-year-old, then move away for 10 years, call it good. All right. So there you go. 59, 41. I don't know. We had some really good, complicated questions this time. I'm kind of surprised. So let me know what your thoughts are on any of the questions that we talked about. What are your thoughts? What would you rather do in each of the instances we covered? Aside from that, don't forget you can always leave questions, problems, suggestions, horror stories down in the comments section below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Would You Rather.